What are some of the metrics you use then as you're identifying those peer groups?
Well, we look at, first and foremost, the investment style of the fund. So for Morningstar, that's a question of category. But it also goes beyond category, because even within a broad category, you can have different ways of managing money that are relevant in terms of expenses and performance. For example, a more concentrated fund would tend to have higher expenses, but also greater volatility. And so arguably, it shouldn't be compared to a more diversified fund, but only to other concentrated funds. Similarly, on the fixed income side, some funds tend to use off-benchmark or non-core bonds. Others have a restriction which prohibits that. So in fairness, you don't want to compare the two kinds of funds at the peer group level, because they're really doing different things or they have different parameters. So you also need to consider the distribution practices of the fund. An A-share fund is likely to be compared to another A-share fund, an ETF to an ETF, though that may change. And also you need to consider the size of the fund. Funds are supposed to realize economies of scale and pass those on to the shareholder. Smaller funds are at a disadvantage, and generally in some contexts you would only compare those to smaller funds and larger funds to larger funds.
You mentioned that right now it's mutual fund to mutual fund and ETF to ETF. Mm-hmm. Is that likely to change?
It is likely to change. Our star rating system is now going to put ETFs with open-end funds, and that really reflects changes in the marketplace. As an individual investor, it used to be you bought an ETF or a fund. Now, within the same portfolio, or even increasingly the same retirement plan, you could have an ETF, you could have a fund, you might have a collective trust. So the old days, when there were strict silos or distinctions between the product types and an advisor or intermediary only offered one and not the other, those are going away. So if you go into our software or any other planning software, you can bring individual stocks, ETFs, funds into the same portfolio. So it's the same market, and we think they deserve to be compared head to head.
That makes sense. Great. Well, thank you for your time.
Sure.